Hi grade 8. So today we are going to be talking about the circulatory system. And so last class we talked about the respiratory system and how oxygen enters the body, works with the diaphragm and the lungs. And so now we're going to talk about how the circulatory system takes that oxygen from the lungs and moves it throughout the body. So, can anyone tell me what the circulatory system is?
Pushes blood to the body.
Yeah, exactly. So, it circulates blood throughout the body, and it's made above the heart, blood vessels, and the blood itself. And actually, it works and pushes the lymphatic system throughout the body, but that's something you guys are going to cover in high school. So, can anybody tell me what our blood itself is actually made out of?
Red blood cells.
Yeah, exactly. Red blood cells is one part of it.
White blood cells?
White blood cells is another part, yeah. So, our blood is actually 55% plasma. So if you look here, the plasma is a suspension that holds all of the other components of the blood, and that includes the white blood cells and platelets and the red blood cells, as we talked about before. Now, can anybody tell me what a platelet is? That's okay. So, has anybody ever gotten a cut, like a paper cut? Yeah? So you notice how there's a little bit of blood and then it stops bleeding right away? So, that's called clotting, and that's due to the platelets in your blood. And there's actually a disease associated with that called hemophilia, which we'll talk about in your social studies class with Alexander the Great's son. Anyways, on to the heart. So the heart is the main organ of the circulatory system, and it's a muscular organ that pumps blood throughout the body. And this pumping is what allows the blood to travel through the body and share the oxygen that's been picked up by the blood. And as it becomes deoxygenated throughout the body, it travels towards the heart and through the lungs. And the pumping of the heart is caused by electrical currents in the heart cells. So, in the heart there are 4 chambers. The top 2 are called the atriums. So the right atrium pumps blood from the body into the right ventricle, and the left atrium pumps blood from the lungs into the left ventricle. And the right atrium up here is actually where the electrical current starts that creates the pumping. So, with ventricles, they're the bottom 2 chambers of the heart down here. So the right ventricle pumps blood from the right atrium into the lungs, and then the left ventricle pumps the oxygenated blood to the rest of the body. Now, it pumps blood through the aorta. So the aorta is the main artery that carries blood out of the left ventricle and into the rest of the body. And it is connected to major arteries that distribute oxygenated blood throughout the body itself. So, there are 3 important types of blood vessels. Can anybody name a type of blood vessel?
Veins?
Veins? Yeah, veins is one of them.
Arteries.
Yeah, arteries. Now there's a 3rd one that's super important.
Capillaries?
Yeah, capillaries. So, first we're going to talk about arteries, and they carry oxygenated blood from the heart to the body. And in images, they're typically depicted as red. And the next are the veins, and they carry deoxygenated blood, or blood that doesn't have any oxygen, from the body back to the heart. And they're typically depicted as blue. Now the last one is the capillaries. And they're tiny little blood vessels that only allow blood cells to move through one at a time. So you know when you guys were in elementary school and you'd walk from class to class, you'd have to stand in your lineup, You have to have your hands at your side. You can only move one person at a time. It's kind of the same idea. So they also help with the diffusion of oxygen and nutrients into the cells around the capillaries, and they help to connect the arteries and the veins together. Now, this one's also part of it, and it's super important, is that the lungs have to do with bringing oxygen into the blood. And the blood comes from the right side of the heart, gets oxygenated, and moves to the left side of the heart. So it would go through, come to the lungs, go out, and into the left side of the heart. Okay, so now you have the worksheets in front of you. I handed them out at the beginning of class. I'm just going to give you all 1 minute just to quickly fill out where you think everything goes, and then we'll go over the answers together. Okay, so now that everybody's done, and I see eyes back on me, so this is what I handed out to you guys, correct? Yeah? Is everybody good with the answers? Yeah. So here you can see, this is the aorta. This image is different than it actually is inside your body. There's more tubes, but for the sake of this, it's easier. This right here is a vein, and can anybody tell me why this is one's a vein?
This brings blood to the heart. And
It's deoxygenated.
Exactly. So it's bringing it from the body back to the heart. Now, why is this one the artery then?
So it's oxygenated?
This is oxygenated. Awesome. Thanks, Adria. Okay. So now, everyone is going to find their heart rate using their neck. And we're going to count for 1 minute, and every time you feel your blood pump once, that's going to count as a heartbeat, right? So we're going to count how many times your heart beats in 1 minute. Ready, set, go. Okay. So, does anybody want to share their heart rate with class?
87.
You're at 87. Okay.
66.
66.
66. I got 70.
70. Okay, mine was at 58. So, same as earlier when I did it. So, what is your heart rate?
So,
Can anybody tell me what their heart rate is? Or what does it have to do? Yeah.
How many times your heart beats?
Yeah, exactly. So, your heart rate is the speed of the heartbeat measured by the contractions or pumps of the heart. So, do you remember when we talked about earlier that electrical current? Yeah. So, each time you feel one of those heartbeats, that's that electrical current working to pump your heart. And it assists in moving the blood around your body and from your body to the lungs. So, why is our heart rate important?
To know how hard your heart is working?
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely one answer. Yeah, Alexa?
know if you're alive.
To know if you're alive. Yeah, that's a good one. So, it dictates the speed that the blood flows throughout the circulatory system. And if your heart rate is lower, that typically means you have better heart health or you're in a really relaxed state. So if I was just sitting at home on the couch listening to some calm music, my heart rate might go down to 55. But if I'm doing a really intense workout and I'm playing sports, my heart rate might go up to 110. So a really high heart rate, which is classified as over 100 beats per minute, means that blood flow is actually greatly reduced and your circulation isn't working as well. Can anybody think of why that would be? So, one reason is that if your heart is beating really fast and it's pushing the blood really quickly, it's not giving the blood enough time to stop in your lungs, diffuse all of the oxygen properly, and then move on. Really top athletes, sometimes their heart rates get down to like 35 beats per minute. My friend, she was playing soccer in, I think, high school. She's playing soccer and basketball and a whole bunch of sports. She's like, this is the best shape I've been in my life. Her heart rate was at 40 beats per minute at resting. So you're taking a lot of time to breathe and relax yourself. So, we're going to move on to heart health. So, heart health has a huge impact on your heart rate. What do you guys think some of these impacts may be?
Your heart rate's faster?
Yeah. So, if you're impacting your heart rate, you're gonna have less oxygen, your body isn't gonna work as well. One thing that impacts your heart rate is heart disease, so a buildup of plaque and everything along your arteries stops blood flow. Certain lung diseases are gonna stop oxygen from moving from the lungs into the blood. And there's gonna be an increased risk of heart attack and stroke because of a lack of oxygen. And another big one is nicotine. So nicotine found in cigarettes and in vapes constricts blood vessels, so that increases blood pressure and heart rate. So if you guys are all, think of a funnel. If you're pouring something and it's going into the top of the funnel, everything's fine, but then as soon as it gets in the tiny part, only so much can move through at once, and that can really increase the pressure of which everything's moving. So what are some ways that we can improve our overall heart health?
Exercise.
Yeah, exercise is a really big one.
Eat better.
Eat better. Your diet plays a huge role in this.
Don't smoke.
Don't smoke or vape. So avoiding vaping and smoking is a really big one. Regular exercise, get your 1 hour of physical activity in. Like you're in phys ed, you have an hour of time, or 40 minutes I believe. Make use of that. Or even just out walking your dog, that's moving, that's doing something. Eating a proper balanced diet, a lot of dark leafy greens really helps. And junior high can be a very stressful time. There's a lot of components in your lives happening. Lots of sports you guys might be playing, a lot of extracurriculars. So reducing stress is really good for your heart as well. Okay, so now that's done with the lecture portion. Now we're going to move on to the brain drain. Thank you so much.
What?